Hello everyone. Today we will delve into chapter 4 of our NCERT history book titled What Books and Burials Tell Us. This chapter provides us with crucial insight into ancient societies through burial practices, which can enrich our understanding of historical context, which is essential for UPSC and UPPSC preparation. Let's start by discussing historical sources. Historians rely on various material such as books, inscriptions, and manuscripts to construct narrative about the past. For example, the Vedas, Vedic texts are vital source that reveal the societal structure, cultural practices, and belief of ancient India. This paragraph talks about the Vedas. The Vedas are the oldest sacred text of Hinduism composed in Sanskrit. They are considered the foundational scripture of Indian culture and spirituality. As you know, there are four Vedas, that is Rigveda, Samveda, Yajurveda, and Atharvaveda. Now, each Veda consists of four parts. The first part is Samhita, which is a collection of hymns and mantras. The second part is Brahmanas. It contains prose explaining the rituals and ceremonies. Now the third is Aryankas. It contains theological discourses and meditative practices. The last is Upanishad, which is a philosophical text discussing the nature of reality and the self. Self meaning Atma. Now, what information do we get from Vedas? The Vedic texts such as Rigveda are not merely religious scripture, they also provide information about social organization, rituals, and the economy. Now, Vedas are written in Sanskrit. The Sanskrit of the Vedas, known as Vedic Sanskrit, differs significantly from the classical Sanskrit that is studied today. Classical Sanskrit is part of the Indo-European language family, which include languages such as Latin, Greek, and the modern language of Europe and South Asia. Many words in Sanskrit have cognates in other Indo-European language, highlighting common roots. For example, if we take the word father, which is Pitar in Sanskrit, Pater in Latin, and father in English. Now let me take another example, like if we can consider the word mother, which is Matar in Sanskrit, Mater in Latin, and mother in English. Now one more word, that is three, which is Traya in Sanskrit, Tres in Latin, and three in English. Classical Sanskrit emerged around the 4th century BCE, standardized by the grammarian Panini in his work Ashtadhyayi. Panini's grammar established the rules for phonetics, morphology, and syntax, contributing to the language precision and richness. Sanskrit served as a lingua franca for intellectual discourse in ancient India and significantly influenced many regional languages including Hindi, Bengali, Marathi, and others. It also impacted many Southeast Asian languages due to the spread of Indian culture and due to the trade, and especially through the spread of Buddhism and Hinduism. The Vedas were traditionally transmitted orally before being written down, contributing to the preservation of their phonetics and grammatical characteristic. Now the next section is how historians study the Rigveda. Now first, historian conduct textual analysis. They examine the language and structure of the Rigveda to understand its vocabulary and the grammar. By looking at the themes like rituals and deities, they gain insight into the beliefs and practices of the Vedic people. For example, hymn to Agni, the fire god, show the importance of fire in their rituals. Now next is comparative analysis. Now historians compare the Rigveda with other Indian texts It could be Indian or some other text, ancient text, such as the Avesta from Persia. This helps identify shared cultural themes. They also look for similar words in other Indo-European languages, which highlight linguistic connection and cultural exchange. Now, the next way of studying the Vedas is by contextual understanding. Historian place the Rigveda in the socio-political context of its time from about 1500 BCE to 500 BCE by correlating archaeological findings with the text. They uncover details about society, trade, and technology during the Vedic period. Now here is a script of picture of manuscript of Rigveda. It is preserved in it is Rigveda written on a bark leaf. It is preserved in Pune, Maharashtra. Now here a conversation between sage Vishwamitra and the river is given. Now what information do we get after reading the paragraph? After reading this hymn, we realize that Rigveda provides invaluable insight into the rivers of ancient India, their significance, and their role in the life of the Vedic people. Now it is mentioned here, look at map 1 and list 5 rivers that are not mentioned in the Rigveda. Kindly do this question after looking at this map which is given here. Now the Vedas provide description of the rivers, their flows and their landscape. For example, the Saraswati is described as a mighty river, sometimes associated with fertile plains and rich biodiversity. These descriptions help historians and archaeologists understand the geographical feature of the region. Now, the river Saraswati has long gone dried. It used to flow in this region. Now, what other information do we get from the Rigveda? Apart from providing us insight into the ancient river, it also provides insight into the various tribes and their settlement. For example, the Bharatas and the Purus are two tribes mentioned in the Rigveda. Historians can trace their movement and territories based on their reference in the text, which helps map out where these tribes might have lived and how they interacted. The Vedas also highlight locations associated with rituals. For example, the mention of Ganga and Yamuna as sacred rivers indicate that certain areas along these rivers may have been important for Vedic rituals. These locations can be marked on historical maps as significant sites for early religious practices. The proximity of settlements to river is highlighted in the Vedas, suggesting patterns of human habitation based on the access to water. As we have already read that water is essential for the survival, so the human habitation might have occurred around where the water was available. Now tribes such as Bharatas and Purus are associated with specific river valleys, indicating that these areas were likely center of population and activity. The Vedas offer a wealth of information about the rivers of India, highlighting their geographical, cultural, and economic significance. By studying these texts, historians can better understand how ancient Indian societies interacted with their environment, utilized natural resources, and structured their communities around these vital waterways. One exercise I think we should do is list out the 5 rivers that are not mentioned in the Rigveda. This hymn. Capacities related to warfare and conflict. Women may have supported warriors by managing resources, organizing logistics, and caring for the wounded. They played vital role in maintaining the home front. Let's explore how war bounty was distributed. The portion the portion of the war bounty was distributed among warriors, leaders, which was often referred to as bhaga. Some portion of spoils of war, which included cattle, weapons, and valuable items, was divided among the warriors who fought in the conflict. This served as a reward for their bravery and contribution. A portion of the war bounty was commonly offered to the deities as part of rituals, thanking them for victory and seeking further blessings. Rulers or chieftains typically retained a significant share of the bounty to enhance their status and wealth, which helped in asserting their power and maintaining loyalty among their followers. Now, the spoils could have also been used to support the community, helping to replenish resources or provide for the families of those who fought. Now, we will see how communities were divided during Vedic age. Words to describe people. The society was organized into four varnas. First one was the Brahmins, which was the priestly class. It was responsible for religious rituals, education, and maintaining sacred text. They were considered the highest in the social hierarchy. Now the next one is Kshatriya, the warrior and the ruling class tasked with the protection and the governance. They were responsible for defending the community and leading in battles. Now the next one is Vaishyas, the merchant and the agriculture class involved in trade and agriculture and livestock rearing. They contributed significantly to the economy. And the last one was Shudras, the laboring class that served the other three varnas, that is Brahmin, Kshatriya, and Vaishya. They perform manual work and had fewer rights compared to the higher varnas. All the varna system existed during the early Vedic period, but its structure was not as rigid or clearly defined as it later became. In the early Vedic period, the varna system was primarily functional, meaning individual could change role based on their skill and contribution to the society. But in the later period, it becomes more rigid. In the early Vedic period, it was not strictly hereditary, but in the later Vedic period, it became very rigid. Now, the Rajas were the essential leader who combined political, military, and religious and social responsibility to maintain order and guide their communities in the early Vedic period. While Rajas in the early Vedic period functioned as tribal leaders with relatively decentralized power, by the later Vedic period they evolved into centralized ruler of larger kingdom with more defined military, religious, and economic roles. This transition marked a significant development in the political and social landscape of ancient India. There are few keywords mentioned here which let's understand those. First is Jana. Now, Jana generally refers to a tribe or community. It represents a collective of people bound by common ancestry, culture, and social practices. Imagine the Bharata tribe as a larger community or Jana. This tribe consists of multiple families that shared a common ancestry and cultural practices. The Bharata tribe is led by a chief or Raja who makes decisions for the entire group and represent them in external affairs. Now the next one is Vish. Now, Vish refers to a smaller community or subgroup within a Jana. Within the Bharata tribe, there could be a smaller group such as Kuru Vish or Puru Vish. Each Vish consists of localized community with its own leaders and it may focus on specific activities like farming or trading. Now, the next word is Arya. The word Arya means companionship. Historians think that the original home of the Aryans, Arya or the Aryans, was somewhere in the Central Asia. They were the tribes of nomadic people moving from place to place with their herds of cattle in search of new pastures. Some tribes migrated towards Europe, others moved first into Iran, then entered India through Afghanistan around the time when Harappan city were declining. At one time, historians thought the Aryans or the Aryas invaded India and attacked and wiped out the Harappan cities, but they no longer think so. The tribes entered India around 1500 BCE in many waves and gradually occupied the land, but there is no evidence of an invasion. The verses in the Vedas mention battles and the destruction of cities, so the Aryans might have come into conflict with the Harappan as they moved across North India. But they did not occupy their cities. Instead, they moved on eastward, leaving these already declining cities behind them. That is how the plains around the river Ganga and the Yamuna were soon occupied by the Aryans. The Indo-Aryans first settled in Punjab area, then gradually moved eastward along the fertile plains of Ganga and Yamuna. Here they began to clean forest, to grow crops, and then started to live in villages. It was the next stage of civilization as they progressed from being nomads to farmers. Soon they were living in villages and would later build towns and cities. Now, one another term is dasas. The concept of dasas in the Vedic period refers to a group of people who were often seen as outsider or enemies by the Aryas in Indo-Aryans. Now, dasas are considered lower in social hierarchy compared to the Aryas and were often associated with servitude. They engaged in manual labor, agriculture, crafts, often working for Arya tribes. Dasas sometimes engaged in military conflict with Arya group. Next topic is Silent Sentinels, the story of the megalith. Let's look at the illustration on the next page. Now these are the megaliths. While the Vedic texts reflect the experience of the Indo-Aryans in northern India, other regions were also undergoing significant transformation. Megalith in India are significant archaeological structures that provide insight into ancient cultures and practices. Mega means big and lithic, as you know, lithic means stone. These are the large stone structure or monuments built for various purposes, often associated with burial practices. Megalithic culture in India flourished around 1000 BCE to 300 CE during the late Neolithic period to early Iron Age. They reflect the social, cultural, and religious practices of ancient communities. Now, where the megalithic practices were followed. Now, the several it is mentioned here. Several sites have been found around Karnataka, particularly around Hampi and the Western Ghat. The megalith have been found. The megaliths here are known for their unique design. Some sites have also been found in Andhra Pradesh. Notable sites include the megalithic burial site in Rayalaseema region. Now, states like Meghalaya and Assam feature prominent megalithic structure, often linked to tribal culture. There are certain similarity among these sites, such as burial of the dead accompanied by black and red earthenware. Additionally, the iron weapon and tools have sometimes been discovered alongside the remain. Let's delve deep into the some megalithic sites. One such site is Brahmagiri. It is a significant archaeological site located in the Chikmagalur district of Karnataka. The site dates back to the Neolithic to early Iron Age, approximately 1000 BCE to 300 CE. It represents a period of transition from prehistoric to early historic culture in South India. Now, what were the artifacts discovered at Brahmagiri? Pottery, especially black and redware, stone tools and iron implements, terracotta figurine, and cans indicate the site was used for burials, often accompanied by grave goods. Some graves had elaborated burials with many items like tools and pottery, which suggest higher status. While simpler burials indicate lower status, wealthier household may be larger or in prominent position, while the poorer ones were smaller and they clustered together. At some burials, several artifacts from distant places have been found, which indicate trade and wealth. Sites without such item may have been for the poor people. In certain megalith, archaeologists have uncovered multiple skeletons with a single burial chamber. This indicates that these structures were used for collective burial, possibly for families and groups. Now, how did the bodies of those who died later were brought into the cave? Now, these were brought by portholes, which served as an entrance to the burial chamber. These are the portholes. It serves as an entrance to the burial chamber, allowing mourners or priests to enter during funerary rites or rituals. The presence of portholes indicate that the site was not just a burial ground but also a place for rituals and community gathering associated with death. Let's learn about another site, which is Inamgaon. Let me show you in the map. I forgot to Brahmagiri and Inamgaon. Brahmagiri, as it is mentioned here, it is a megalithic site, and Inamgaon, these were the early villages. Now, the Inamgaon is located in the Maharashtra near the banks of the Bhima river. Its strategic location has contributed to its historical significance. This site dates back to the late Neolithic to early Iron Age, approximately between 3600 and 2700 years ago. It represents a crucial period in the transition of human societies. Now, the discovery of Inamgaon is particularly important as it is vital for understanding the transition from hunter-gatherer societies to agriculture communities. This shift laid the foundation for settled life. Excavation have revealed a well-planned settlement with structures including both circular and rectangular houses. There are also remains of granaries and storage pits, indicating organized living. Inamgaon shows evidence of agriculture, with crops like rice and wheat being cultivated. Additionally, the animal husbandry practices indicate the domestication of cattle and goats, contributing to the community's subsistence. The site features dolmen and cans, which indicate complex burial customs. The presence of grave goods suggests that these practices had significant cultural and religious implications. Wealth of information about the early development of agriculture societies and their cultural practices. For aspirant preparing for UPSC and UPPSC, understanding such sites is essential for grasping the broader context of Indian history. Now, at Inamgaon, archaeologists also discovered the remains of a notable burial that is believed to be belong to a chief or an important individual. But how did they know that it belonged to a chief? Now, burial was associated with the large dolmen, indicating that the individual had a significant status within a community. The burial included various grave goods such as pottery, tools, and possible ornaments, suggesting that the individual was an important figure, likely a chief or a leader. The presence of chief's burial reflect the social hierarchy and organized structure within the community at Inamgaon, highlighting the role of leaders in early agriculture societies. Now, this finding provides valuable insight into the social and political dynamics of that time, indicating that leadership roles were recognized and celebrated in burial practices. Let's explore an intriguing aspect of archaeology, which is how experts differentiate between male and female skeleton. Now, archaeologists first study the pelvic morphology. The female pelvis is generally wider and more circular, designed for childbirth. In contrast, the male pelvis is narrower and more robust. And next, they look at the skull. The frontal bone is another distinguishing feature. Males often have a more sloping forehead, whereas females have a more vertical forehead. Next up, long bones. Male have long bones such as femurs, and humerus are generally larger and more robust than those of females. This reflects a greater, muscle mass. The size of the teeth and patterns of the wear may help indicate sex, although they are not the primary criteria. Let us explore the earliest writing system in China, known as the oracle bone script, which dates back to the Shang dynasty. Now, it is the earliest evidence of writing in China. It emerged during the Shang dynasty around 1600 to 1046 BCE. This period is marked by significant advancement in culture, technology, and governance. The script was carved on animal bones and turtle shells. These were used in divination, a practice where people asked questions to ancestors or gods. This early writing laid the groundwork for later Chinese script and literature. Now, one question which is given here, you have to list out the difference between the Rajas of Rigveda and these kings. By comparing these two types of ruler, you are not just memorizing fact, you are sharpening your critical thinking skill. Imagine what life was like for those kings and their subjects. How did their leadership style impact their society? Feel free to express your thoughts creatively. You can present your difference in a chart, a story, or even in a debate. Let your imagination flow and see where it takes you. Now let's start with the exercises given here. First up is match the column. First is Sukta. The term Sukta comes from Sanskrit. That means it means well said or good verse. In the context of Vedas, particularly the Rig Veda, a Sukta refers to a hymn or a collection of verses dedicated to a specific deity or theme. These were used in the battle. Now the word yajna can be translated as sacrifice, offering, or worship. It signifies the act of giving and offering to the divine. Now the dasa refers to a servant or individual of lower status in ancient Indian society. Slave. Megalinth means stone boulder. Now the next one is complete the sentence. Slaves were used for, in ancient societies including those referenced in Vedic text, slaves were used for a variety of purpose. Slaves often worked in fields, performing tasks such as planting, harvesting, tending to crops. Many slaves were employed in household, taking care of household work such as cooking, cleaning, and child care. Some slaves possessed specific skills, working as artisans, craftsmen, or the laborers in trades like pottery, weaving, or metalwork. Now the next was in megalith are found in. These are the large stone structure or monuments often associated with prehistoric culture. They can found in various parts of the world. In India predominantly, they are found in states like Karnataka, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and West Bengal. Significant sites include, as we have read earlier, Inamgaon, Brahmagiri, and the Khasi Hill in Meghalaya. Now the stone circles or the boulders on the surface were used to, here it is mentioned somewhere around here. Circle of stone boulder or single stone standing on the ground. They are the indication that there are burial beneath. They used to mark the burial stone boulder. These stone boulder used to mark the burial site. Now the portholes are used for primarily for access to burial chambers, allowing offering and ventilation. as well as having potential symbolic and astronomical significance. People at Inamgaon site, they ate wheat, rice, pulses, peas, since bones of animals such as sheep, turtle, birds with cutting marks have also been found, so they might have eaten those too. Let's discuss some interesting topic. First one is, in what ways the book we read today are different from that of the Rigveda. The books we read today differ from the Rigveda in several key ways. Rigveda is primarily religious and philosophical hymn, focusing on ritual, hymns to deities, and the cosmic principles, while the modern books cover a wide range of genres, including fiction, non-fiction, science, self-help, and more, addressing various aspects of human experience. Now, the Rig Veda is composed in ancient Sanskrit with a poetic and highly stylized form, using specific meter and structure, while the modern books are written in contemporary language with diverse style and formats, catering to different audience and reading levels. While the Rig Veda is a foundational religious text with a specific culture and historical context, modern books are diverse in content, style, and accessibility, reflecting the complexities of the modern life. Now, I believe you should try to answer the next question on your own. We have discussed this topic in detail while covering barriers, as as you should have enough information to tackle it. Next question is, in what way you think the life of Rajas was different from that of Dasa or Dasi? The life of the Raja was significantly different from that of the Dasa or the Dasi in the Vedic period in many ways. If we talk about the social status, Raja held a high social status, often considered a leader and the protector of the community, while Dasi occupied a lower social status, viewed as subservient to the Raja and the other higher class. Now, the Raja exercised authority over land and people, made decision on governance, warfare, and the rituals. Das or the Dasi had no power or authority, primarily served as the needs of their master, and they had to follow their commands. Now, if we talk about lifestyle and privileges, the Raja lived a life of privilege with access to wealth, resources, and luxury. They participated in rituals and ceremonies that reinforced their status. Now, Dasa or Dasi led a life of labor and servitude, often engaged in hard work with the limited resources, and they had little to no personal freedom. Now, in terms of role in society, Raja acted as a leader in both political and religious matter, performing important rituals and making key decisions for the community, while the Dasis contributed to society through manual labor, domestic work, and agriculture tasks, but their contributions were often unrecognized. Now, there are many differences also in the education and knowledge, like the Raja received education in governance, warfare, and religious practices, while the Das or Dasis had little or no access to education, focusing instead on practical skill needed for their daily task.